Yeah, that's an important lesson for young directors to realise, that when you're working commercials, it's a collaboration.
It's a team, yeah.
Action!
It was a bit of a weird one because it wasn't a script it was not a fully fledged script at the time. It was a kind of something we had to kind of evolve with the creatives on. And my way of working at that point wasn't very official. I just wanted to take it and run away with it and start making things. And I think halfway through they're like, it's really good, but wait, we want to be involved too.
Yeah, so they're teaching you the ropes of how it kind of works.
It was like two steps forward, one step back.
Yeah,
We had to scrap a bunch of stuff.
Yeah,
they wanted to, the creatives naturally, now looking back on it makes sense, right? They wanted to be involved. But to me, I was like just running right off in a direction. Who's that? Who's that? Like they can't tell me what to do.
Yeah, that's an important lesson for young directors to realise, that when you're working commercials, it's a collaboration.
It's a team, yeah.
Client, agency, production company, and yourself.
I'm just thinking about just collaborating with the creatives. I mean, the fact that you've got to collaborate with all that, the wider team as well.
Will you just explain what you mean by the wider team?
It's every time you do a job, it's like it's kind of you're kind of like a Sherpa, right? Trying to lead people up a mountain. You're there to help guide them a little bit in the idea that they have written. They spent months putting this thing together. The last thing they want is a director to turn up and be like, I don't need you anymore. See you later, and then run off with it, right? They need to help guide the team, the creative team, and whoever else in a certain direction to try and execute their dream as best as possible. But then when I refer to the wider team, I mean, it's like that's the initial team, but then you've got all these other powers that be, which is your executive creative director or the account team, the goddamn account team. It's like they come up with all sorts of thoughts, and then you've got the client side, and then the client's higher ups, and so even though you think you're quite solid down here, you still got all that to compete with in the heavens. The people that really know what they want, and so you're being struck by lightning all the time. And you have to like readjust, and
was that quite a big learning curve for you then? So are you still learning that process now of how to involve?
It never stops. Does it? And the funny thing is that line of communication seems to be. It's like like the universe is expanding, and that the gaps between this universe and our universe is expanding. That's what it feels like. It's the client seems to be drifting further and further away at faster than light speed, and it's getting harder to get true communication.
That's a really good point. I have a friend of mine he was an ex-creative, Steve Hudson, as a director who was first creative, and I remember when I first worked with him, he was the first person to educate me about how important it is to liaise with the creative team in a kind of healthy way. And I remember him saying to me, they wrote the idea, they've been living it for 2 months, why wouldn't I listen to them? Do you know what I mean? And he was the first director, because I think the old school way of doing it when I was first coming up was the director would kind of go off in their own direction, and it would say like a relay race.
That's the way it was.
You handed me the baton, and now it's my turn to run with it. But Steve was the first person that taught me about the benefits of involving the agency, because it creates a more fluid process. It can do if you get it right. Do you know what I mean? It's a way of kind of negotiating with them in a way.
I agree. I think if you can get the balancing act right, it can not only make your life easier, it can really enhance the job. But every job is different, and you can be on jobs where no matter how well you play the diplomacy, there's maybe still some outlier that you can't control. There's still someone that wants to go off in a different direction and pull the ship apart. Not always, but it's the thing is, at least from my humble opinion, the best thing to do is to go in with kind of zero expectations, at least just be mindful of the situation as it unfolds, that it could go each way. You can't. I think what I used to do for myself is I would be like, no, it's going to go this way, and it's going to be amazing, and we're going to do this, and we're going. Sometimes all these different people, you just can't. No matter how much you get stressed, you just can't control them. Because they're too far down the chain. Like maybe there's an account person that's out of control, or they have different idea of what it's supposed to be, and they're making the ship go a different direction because they have more power to steer it or whatever. It's like it's very hard to as a director in commercials, it's very hard to be entirely 100% consistent. You can try and play your role, but you're not the captain of the entire ship. There is a lot of other captains, and they're steering the ship just as... Everyone has a sail, and the wind is blowing randomly. It's like, who gets the wind?
Yeah.
I got more wind on this one.
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah,
how much
yeah.
power are you giving me? Sometimes they give you a lot, and they want to be told. Sometimes they want more. So
Yeah.
you have to kind of...
It's
feel
it's
it.
reading the room, isn't it, and navigating, as you say,
Yeah.
the different sort of levels of power. But that, the universe expanding you were talking about, and the client being further away from the director is actually
Well,
really interesting.
seems like there's been a bunch of jobs I've done recently where, I mean, we all know budgets are not getting any bigger, right? And I'm just amazed that I'm finding myself on these projects where it's like, Christian, budget's kind of tight, and you're like, yeah, but it's our job to still try and make this work. Okay, so we try and make it work. And then as you win the job and you go further down the line, you start finding out there's 2 agencies involved in the project. You're like, what the hell is going on here? This is why there's no money. There's just more and more people parasitically feeding off these budgets. Like, the bureaucracy seems to just increase sometimes rather than decrease.
Yeah. I guess it's down to how they kind of win the job and how the politics around the winning of the job.
That's bizarre.
And and it's like, because I mean, the commercials are known for kind of not being the most efficient way of getting everything on screen, right? It's and that hurts me as well when when I'm on a job and I can see money's being wasted in the wrong areas, and it's not gonna, the job won't benefit from that. Like everyone flying business class, and then you ending up with not having the right camera equipment. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
I'm flying economy around to the other side of the world.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I hear you. Yeah. It's funny. Yeah.
Yeah. That's part of the
18 clients turning up in first class.
Yeah. But it's part of that. I mean, it's like part of the, like you say, it's part of the animal, isn't it? It's just, that's what commercials is. And it has that kind of, it's ultimately, I always, a friend of mine explains it to me like we were kind of like almost like a kind of exclusive hedge fund of people flying around the world, like a creative hedge fund where we'd be paid a lot of money to basically, to be the creative kind of influence on, fundamentally what is a financial transaction.
Yep.
And sometimes as kind of film school students or whatever, or artists or whatever, we forget that. We forget that we're being employed. And
that's true.
Yeah,
that's true. And you also forget that, you're being employed and you get to travel to maybe nice parts of the world and just shut up and do the job for 2 weeks and go home with a paycheck. And it's nice and just be nice. But yeah, we are all victims of like wanting the best project possible, right? And especially as a director, I mean, you can put in painful hours on a treatment and you win the job and you're like, thank God, hallelujah, I've got this one, and it's for the showreel too. I'm going to make it the best goddamn project. And we all start to get very personal about it, and it's very hard to step out of that.
Yeah,
and just take a little bit of a step back and be like, it's everything's good. Everything's good.
The danger is getting too excited too early on about a project, and then
maybe too passionate too early.
Yeah.
Just let it set sail a little bit and see which way it's going before you get too
before you get too invested in a certain thing. Yeah. That's really good.
You can have your dreams broken very quickly.
Yeah,
so I think so. I think that's important.
One of the rules I have.
Go slow.
Yeah, one of the rules I have now, slightly separate issue, but I tend not to even look at a script or treatment too much until I know I'm definitely doing the job, because there's so many times when you get invested in a job and then it goes away, and it's like a little part of you dies because of that. So it's better to kind of keep your powder dry until you know that that it's definitely going to happen.
Sure.
Firstly, and then, like you say, it's until I've spoken to the director. What I tend to do is not have too many ideas until I've spoken to the director, because all I'm doing is I'm just creating barriers rather than like a.
The director's maybe going to have ideas, or the director doesn't have any ideas, but the agency have many ideas, and that's being fed into the director, and you don't know which way it's going to go. So I agree. Have ideas, but just maybe not throw them all out like a tsunami of thoughts, and as you said, like it can create a little boundary at the start. It's like just
so to hear, to listen first a lot, and then piece it together after that, and then. It's like and the other thing I think to myself is, how can I add value to this? How can my skills add value to what they're doing, rather than and try and just find a way of trying to get some value in there that I feel that they wouldn't have got with someone else.